Hello, my gummies. How are you doing today? Thank you so much for joining me for yet another episode of Bumping My Gums. There are so many other videos that you could have clicked on, but I appreciate the fact that you clicked on mine. Hopefully, you will laugh a little, you will learn a little something, but you will enjoy this journey. All right, so let's get into it. Today's topic is The Upside, the movie. Have you seen the movie yet? How many people have already seen The Upside? Hubby and I decided to do a little date night, and we decided to see, well, I wanted to see The Upside. And I thought overall that it was really a good movie. The original movie was called The Intangibles, and it was a French movie, and it starred Francois Cluzet and Omar Sy. But this movie starred, and that movie debuted in 2011, but then they decided to remake it with Bryan Cranston and Kevin Hart, and that's the version that I saw. I didn't see The Intangibles. Like I said, it was a French movie and it had subtitles and everything, but I haven't seen it, which in a way I'm kind of glad, because now I don't have anything to compare it to. So I was able to go to the movie and then just be able to enjoy and judge it from that. Let me start out with my disclaimer. Please do not come down in my comment section telling me that I gave the movie away. So I'm going to give you a warning that it is a spoiler alert. There are spoiler alerts. I do use some of the scenes from the movie to talk about different topics. So if you have not seen the movie and you plan on seeing it and you feel like some of the spoilers would mess up your experience, then I would suggest that you end the video now and come back. Please remember to come back after you've watched it and let me know what you think. Provide your feedback down in the comment section, or you can go over to my Instagram page and leave your comment there. All right. So The Upside, it's a comedy drama, which is a little bit out of Kevin's wheelhouse from the way I understand it, because it was more of a dramedy, as they say. And I know he's a little bit more, he's used to the, high-pitched comic person and, comedy where he's able to kind of be a little bit over the top. But in this role, it was a little bit more reserved. I think that they really did a good job. The characters had good on-screen chemistry. I like the interaction between Kevin Hart and Bryan Cranston, and also Nicole Kidman starred in the movie. And then I was happy to see my girl Aja Naomi King. I so want to call her Michaela because that is her character from How to Get Away with Murder. She played Kevin's Hart's, who played Dell, baby mama. And the young boy, if you did see the movie and you looked at the young guy, their son, and thought to yourself, he kind of looks familiar. If you saw Proud Mary or The New Edition Story, then you would have seen Jai Diallo Winston. That's the young guy's name who played Kevin Hart and Aja's son. And I think that he did a good job as well. So just a little bit about the movie. So The Upside is about Philip, who was played by Bryan Cranston, and Dell, who was played by Kevin Hart. Dell and Philip are from two totally different sides of the track. Philip is a businessman and he is quadriplegic, which means he can't move anything from the neck down, and he is a billionaire basically, and he had a hang gliding accident which caused him to be quadriplegic. And Kevin Hart is from the hood, and unfortunately he's a parolee. He had been to jail for selling drugs, and now he's getting out of jail and he's trying to get his life back on track, and he's looking for a job, and that's how they meet. So the movie is basically about these two, their roads crossing, and they become friends. And how they meet is because, like I said, Kevin Hart is a parolee, and he has to find a job. Philip, he is looking for a live-in caregiver, and so him and his I don't want to call her an assistant because she wasn't his assistant. She's an executive basically at his company, Nicole Kidman, and she is facilitating the interviews because I guess he fired the previous caregiver, and he was saying that it's not her job to take care of him, and I guess she was stepping in, so they needed to find a replacement. And so the movie kind of just develops about Philip's and Dell's relationship. Dell is kind of going through his own thing where, he felt like he lived a great life. He was adventurous. He was married to the love of his life. And then unfortunately, she passed away due to her illness. And so he's at a point in his life where he's kind of checked out mentally. And he is asking for DNA. Like if he stops breathing, whatever, he does not want to be revived. And Kevin Hart, Dell's story is, unfortunately, him and his baby mother and his son are not on good terms. He has, by him being a hustler and being in jail, he hasn't exactly been the best role model for his son. So there's tension there, and I guess he's made some broken promises about what he was going to do or when he was supposed to show up, but he hasn't been very reliable, so he doesn't have a good relationship with his son. And when he's unable to find a job, he doesn't have a place to stay, so he was supposed to pick up his son from school, but because he was out on a job interview or whatever, he wasn't able to do so. The mom had to do it. So so there's just a lot of tension there. So what I would like to talk about is, I'm not going to do a lot of spoilers or give away, spoilers in reference to the movie, but I just want to highlight a few things in the movie that made me think about real life situations, real life circumstances. So I just kind of wanted to talk about that. My first point is, sometimes you don't know what you need until you get it. So in the movie, Philip basically hires Dell because Dell doesn't have any experience as being a caregiver. At one point in the movie, Philip even asked Dell, like, have you ever even taken care of anyone? And Dell was like, nope, nobody but myself. And then with Philip, like I said, he's living in this amazing home. He's the owner of several sports cars, but because of his condition, he does not enjoy any of those things because he's just thinking, he's trapped in his body that he can no longer have full mobility over. He lost the love of his life. So as far as he's concerned, he's ready to check out, basically. So through their friendship, they're basically able to give each other some purpose, or kind of just encourage each other to bring them out of their funk and out of their own mess. So for Dell, he's kind of mad at the world and feeling like he's fighting against all of these different odds and obstacles from him trying to be a father. But through his relationship with Philip, he kind of learns that he is getting in his own way. He's the person who's really ultimately he's the person who is not allowing him to have that relationship with his son. And through the relationship with Dell, Philip is learning that you can still have a certain quality of life. Yeah, you may not have, mobility of your body, and people sometimes treat you as like you're not there, but you're still here, so you have to find a way to navigate your life even through those obstacles. So I thought that was, really good, where towards the end, Kevin Hart finds a way for Philip to still go hang gliding even though he's in a wheelchair, and connects him. He's so focused on this one lady who was his pen pal that he couldn't see that he had an opportunity for love right in front of his face. And for Dell, he was able to, he had a job, so he was making money, so he was able to help out his family and bought them a home, and kind of go through a mental journey of trying to get out of his own head and stop self-sabotaging. So that was really cool. My second point was just noticing how pride can prevent you from moving on or keep you from making it to another phase of your life or progressing. Pride can stop you from progressing in life. So the first thing is, he was homeless. Dell was homeless, behind in his child support, and not willing to work certain jobs. So like I said, he was on parole, and a part of his parole is he had to show that he was trying to be gainfully employed. And if he didn't do that, then he would have to go back to jail. So he went on several different interviews, and one was at a burger joint, and he just was not hireable. It wasn't showing that he actually wanted a job. He was just kind of going through the emotions, and the woman was trying to ask him interview questions at the burger joint. He was like, blah, 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 whatever. You going to sign this and all. So I was thinking to myself, well, why aren't you taking the job interview seriously? The baby mama's not allowing you to stay on her couch. You lost your apartment because you don't have any money to pay your rent. So in order to show that you're putting forth some effort, like, why would you not take the job, at least for now? I'd look at it like it could have just been a stepping stone. So I feel, and I guess the reason why I say pride is because I've had conversations with other people, and they say, oh, well, you know, how am I going to hold my head up flipping burgers at this burger joint? And I look at it like, well, what's your alternative? You're not proud to work work in a burger joint, but you are proud that everything you get is coming from someone else. Someone else has to give you money for food. You have to deal, if something happens to your sneakers, you got to go to somebody and ask them to buy you a pair of sneakers. Or you get into a relationship with a woman and you're driving around town in her car and she got to give you money for, things or whatever. But that's okay. Like, that's something you could be proud of, but you can't be proud of this job flipping burgers. So that was just kind of interesting to me. And I thought about myself when I was younger, and I had graduated high school, and I didn't go to college right away, but I had a car, and as I shared before, my mother wasn't in a financial situation where she could pay my car note, pay the insurance, give me gas money, give me money to get the car serviced and to keep it on the road. So I had to find a job. So I just took a data entry position. I knew that food service was not for me, but I knew I had to find a job. So I took a data entry position because, unfortunately, with my with me not having a higher education and basically no skills, that was a job that I could get. And it made, it wasn't CEO, wasn't director, whatever. I took what I needed. I did what I needed to do to get my foot in the door of the company. And then from there, I had to come up with a plan of what can I do to increase my income. At the time, I wasn't willing to go back to school to get more education, to get an associate's degree, because, I'm a little long in the tooth. So when I first graduated high school, for a lot of jobs, all you needed was a high school education, or they were only asking for an associate's degree. Here in the year of 2019, they darn near want you to have your doctorate's degree to sweep somebody's floor, to be a janitorial engineer. And I'm not knocking that. I'm just saying that, down times are a little bit different. Anywho, I digress. So yeah, but although I knew that one route wasn't necessarily for me, I knew I had to take something in order to get money into my pocket and help me to get some skill in order to move to the next phase of my life. Like, I couldn't just come fresh out of high school and say, okay, so food service isn't necessarily for me. I want to be an accountant. I want to be an accountant. I went to high school where we had some accounting classes, but I was by far not ready to take the certification for a CPA. So I had to start somewhere and build my way up. So that's all I'm saying for Dell, for his character. I just found it, funny that he didn't really want to take these jobs, but he also was in a situation where he needed to. Yeah, so you just have to, unfortunately, sometimes humble yourself, take the job that you wasn't necessarily want, and then create a plan to get to the next level. And like I said, I gave myself as an example because I feel like, you know, one role wasn't necessarily for me. So, for example, for Dell, when he went to, you know, flip burgers, okay, fine. You didn't want to work at the burger joint, but what were you willing to take? So, he went to the burger place, got the lady's signature. Then he was going to a interview for a janitorial position when it was at an apartment building. So he got to the apartment building, and there was another gentleman in the lobby saying, "Oh, I'm here for an interview for the XYZ role." Kevin Hart, Dale says, "Me too." So he gets on the elevator, and they go up to the penthouse, and he was like, "Man, you know, I thought the job interview was in the basement." So basically, he unknowingly went to a job interview for a caretaker. And once he gets in to the interview with Nicole Kidman's character, Yvonne, and Philip, basically, he's like, "Whatever. Can you just sign my paper, because I just need to prove that I am looking for a job." And through their interaction, Philip was like, "You know what? I want to offer you the job." And Dell was like, "Look, I don't have any experience being a caregiver. I'm not too interested. So yeah, sign my paper." And Philip was like, "So let me get this straight. You don't want to take the job that I offered you, but you want me to sign the paper saying that you are trying to find a job." So he tells him to sleep on it. He's like, "I'm not signing anything. You're going to have to sleep on it and, you know, come back tomorrow." So Dell comes back the next day. They give him the salary. He's like, you know, to live in. And at first he wasn't going to take the role. And once again, I'm thinking, so they're offering you a job you would live in, and you will make a decent salary. I guess at the time you didn't know he would make a decent salary. But they're offering you, the job is live in. So now you will have a place to live, and then they will pay you. What's there to think about? Why would you not want that job? Like I said, at least for that moment, like take it for now until you found something else that you want to do. So my next observation is generational curses. What's a generational curse, you may ask? A generational curse is basically behavior or tendencies or misfortune that a family can carry down from generation to generation to generation. And sometimes it's not even knowingly. Sometimes it's not even, sometimes people don't even recognize it as a generational curse, but it is a generational curse if it is preventing you from being the best you can be. I'll say it like that. So for instance, sometimes they say cancer is hereditary, but I've also heard people say that it's not necessarily cancer that's hereditary, it's the bad eating habits that we pass down to our loved ones, and that causes, and that could lead to cancer, to diabetes or things of that nature. So even though, so let's say unhealthy eating habits that you pass down, like I said, you're not passing it down trying to, you know, cause diseases, but because we're not aware that some of our eating habits can cause these diseases, you're passing that down to your children. So how do you stop the generational curses? You stop them by, number one, recognizing them and purposing in your heart that you're no longer going to pass that down. What sparked that is there's a point in the movie where Dell and Philip are hanging out, and they're just kind of talking, and Dell reveals that he didn't really know his father, that his father wasn't in his life. And matter of fact, he said he never even met his dad up until he went to jail. And when he went to jail, his father said to him, "Welcome home." And then in that moment, that's when he realized, no, this isn't the life that I want to leave, and this is not the legacy that I want to leave for my son. My son is he's smart, he's learning different languages while he's in school, and he wants his son to do better than what he did. Even though he was not a part of his son's life, he couldn't get out of his own way in order to be that positive role model for his son. Dell knew that he didn't want his son to turn out like him, turn out like his father. So that's what made me think about generational curses, because that's what you have to do. Once you recognize it, if you see that your behavior is taking you down a path for you to end up in jail, your father was in jail, let it stop with you. Whatever that path is that you can see, try to be creative and try to find another way. I mean, like I said, no judgment, but like I said, sometimes we just need to recognize these things. And then, and as women, the generational curse could be getting pregnant, being a teenage mother, and never finishing your education. Another generational curse could be child molestation. The whole R. Kelly debacle. His sister molested him, and then he goes on to be this sex predator to other people. Those are things that you're carrying on through generation to generation. Your way of stopping that is, number one, speaking up and speaking out, or getting help to be able to deal with the things that were done to you. So that's what I thought about. Like, he recognized it. He purposed in his heart that he was not going to carry that onto his son. He was not going to train up his son to be a drug dealer, or give his son the opportunity to stay in that environment for him to, unfortunately, go down that path. Something that I learned watching the movie, at first I wasn't sure if it was, true, or if they were, inserted that into the movie for, just for fun or whatever. But Aretha Franklin stepped in for Pavarotti and sang opera. I did not know that. How many of you knew that? Did you, or how many of you, because this was February 25th, 1998 at the Grammy Awards. Do any of you remember that performance? Like, do you remember watching the Grammys and seeing Aretha Franklin sing one of Pavarotti's songs? That is so cool to me. Like, I just, as you know, Aretha Franklin recently, well, I guess you can't say recently, but she passed away from pancreatic cancer. And even through all of that coverage, somehow I missed that little tidbit, that little nugget about her life. And I watched the funeral. Like, I watched the funeral from beginning to end. You would have thought that I was in the church. But no, I watched it on TV. I was actually in Detroit visiting family and messed around and started watching TV. But anyway, I digress. That's not the point of the story. So how she ended up performing opera at the Grammys is Pavarotti himself was supposed to perform, but he fell ill. They said that he wasn't at dress rehearsal and he wasn't at one of the meetings or something like that before the Grammys. But then the night of the Grammys, the show started at 8 and he still hadn't arrived. And they were saying that, so they finally heard from him and he's like, I can't perform for you this year. I'm not feeling well, but I'll perform for you next year. And I believe it was the producer of the Grammys that was like, okay, that's great that you can perform next year, but what are we going to do? What we going to do for this year? So the producer said that they were, trying to think of what performers were there and in the building that would be able to pull off such a strong and powerful song, to pull off opera, So then he said he remembered that like 2 or 3 days before that Aretha, there was a tribute to Pavarotti because he was the winner of the Music Cares Person of the Year award, and as a tribute, like I said, Aretha Franklin performed this song. So he wasn't there himself, but he had heard that she performed, and he said since he wasn't there, he didn't know if she put her Aretha Franklin spin on it or if it was close to the rendition, if it was closer to Pavarotti's performance. So in 1998, there was no AirPods or iTunes. He said he had to get a cassette of Pavarotti's performance and take it to her room and to her dressing room because she was there to perform. She was on the roster to perform at the Grammys at the time. I think the Blues Brother movie was coming out, and she was supposed to be performing one of the songs from that movie, and she was performing with John Goodman and Dan Aykroyd. So she was there, thankfully, and they went to her dressing room and she listened to it, and they were like, can you perform that tonight in like, say 30 minutes? And she was like, yeah, I could do that. And so she performed. So I thought that was really cool. I thought that was a nice little tidbit, so to speak, from the movie that I learned. And it's really a beautiful song. It's really a beautiful song because they played it in the movie in the background. And Philip was an avid opera lover. He went to the opera. He listened to opera in the mornings when he would do his physical therapy and prepare himself. Get his caregiver was getting him ready for the day. He would listen to opera, and Dell was like, why do you listen to this every day? Like, you should switch it up and listen to something else. And Kevin Hart was sharing his love with Philip of Aretha Franklin. So, and one of the scenes in the movie, Philip was like, hey, look what I found. And he played that song for Kevin Hart. And he was like, what? I didn't know. And so I thought that was really cool. The Queen of Soul was also an opera singer. So I thought that was kind of cool that I learned that. Like I said, I didn't get into a lot of detail. So hopefully, if you did not listen to my alert that I did not spoil the movie for you too much, that you will be able to go and watch it. Oh, yes, I'm sorry. One more point before I end. Things that I would have liked more details on. The one thing is, I don't know. I know it was so not the point and really not a part of the movie, but I kind of wanted to get to know the baby mama a little bit more. I wanted to hear about her journey, like what happened. She worked at a store. She was a salesperson at a store that looked like kind of like a Rainbow or a Fashion Sense. I don't know if those stores are around anymore, but she was a clerk there. And I just wanted to know, like, what was her path? What was she working on? Was she in school at the time she met Kevin Hart and they had a child? I don't know if they mentioned that in the movie and I just missed it, or they didn't mention it and I'm just being extra trying to, make them go into directions that they probably really didn't need to dive into. But I was just curious about that. What was her goals? The other thing is when there was a part in the movie where Dell did some enhancements to Philip's wheelchair and made it go faster. And I just kind of wanted to know, where did he get this curiosity or the skill to tinker around with the wheelchair? And then also there was a scene in the movie where there was some drama between Dell and Philip, and Dell was no longer working for Philip, so he ended up working for this wheelchair company. And the scene is, there's a person coming into, they were in the warehouse, and there's a voice that says to Dell, hey, show the new guy, XYZ, and Dell responds back, okay, okay, boss. So I was wondering, I wanted them to dive in a little bit more into that. How did he get the job at this company? Or, was it a startup? Was that something that him and this other guy started? Did he go to this wheelchair company and say, hey, I used to work for someone who's a quadriplegic and I was able to make some enhancements to his wheelchair to increase his quality of life. I would love to come to your company and help you, share my designs with you and make the same enhancements to the wheelchairs that you are, servicing or creating or whatever. So I just kind of want a little bit more. Again, I know, so not the point, but I was just curious. And then the other thing, I would have liked to see is, so we got a chance to follow Dell to the hood, to the projects or whatever, and briefly meet the drug dealer that he either worked for or worked with or whatever when he was out on the street. So you got a chance to kind of see him before he met with Philip. So I kind of wanted to see what Philip was like. I wish they had did like a little flashback to Philip in the boardroom or interacting with some of his employees, so you could kind of get a feel for what his temperament was before he became a quadriplegic. I don't know. I just kind of, it would have been nice to see what his temperament was. They, through some dreams that he had, they show that, his love for his wife, and then through some conversations with Dell, he shared about how he was, a person who lived on the edge. He loved to hang glide and things of that nature. But I kind of wanted to see what he was like at work in his element when he was in the boardroom. They said he said he earned his money by taking other smaller companies and turning them around or something other like that. But I would have loved to see him in action in a negotiation to get to purchase one of those companies or whatever. So that's just, like I said, totally nothing to do with the storyline, but but just things I wouldn't have mind getting a little bit more details about. Okay, now I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you so much for listening to me bump my gums. If you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button and hit that little bell as well, because that way when I post a video, you will get a notification. And also, please hit the like button. And please feel free to follow me on Instagram. That is where I post the topics. And if you see the topic posted there, please feel free to chime in, because I want to have a conversation with you. I don't want it to just to be a one-way conversation. Have a great day on purpose, guys. Bye, gummies.